back to the Larry Kudlow Show.
So, Donald Trump has a chance to pull the plug on EV mandates, electric vehicle mandates. He can even withdraw from emission standards and California policies. Let's bring in my pal Andrew Wheeler, former administrator of the EPA under Mr. Trump, currently a partner at Holland and Hart law firm. Andrew, thank you. It's interesting to me. Can I ask you a question? In the Supreme Court decision, I guess maybe 2 years ago now, EPA versus West Virginia, wasn't one of the parts of that decision that the EPA, lacking a congressional mandate, did not have the authority to control emissions? Was that part of that decision?
Yes, it was. That was based on power plant regulations, but I think it applies here as well because Congress has never given EPA the authority to regulate CO2 emissions, carbon dioxide from cars. They have the authority to regulate traditional pollutants like NOx, particulate matter, but this is the EPA going a step too far on the CO2 emissions.
So the EPA, their electric vehicle mandate, is that based on emissions? And I mean, is that what you're getting at in your op-ed piece in the Wall Street Journal?
Yes, it is. It's based on emissions, and it's trying to transform the entire auto industry to electric vehicles. And that's another thing that the Supreme Court decision said. It's a branch of constitutional law called the Major Questions Doctrine. Has Congress given specific authority to transform an industry to a regulatory agency? In this case, they have not. And what the Biden administration is trying to do is completely change the way automobiles are manufactured and what people can buy. It's social engineering by mandate. And I believe, I know you believe, I know President Trump believes, consumers should have the right to choose and to buy whatever car they want. If you want to buy an EV, that's fine. But the government should not tell everybody that you have to buy an EV car.
Right. The government there's no mandate here. Never was a mandate. So Trump can roll this back through executive order. Is that what you're suggesting?
What I'm suggesting that he needs to give an executive order to the administration, to the bureaucrats working in the Department of Transportation and EPA, that they need to change that regulation right away. They need to propose a new one by this summer, June if possible, because Detroit and the auto manufacturers need lead time in order to start planning for cars. If they do it by June, then that will impact the 2027 model year. There's a delay, and we want to make sure that this happens during President Trump's watch.
So how does California figure into this?
Well, California was given the authority to regulate air pollution from cars back in the 70s, mostly because of Los Angeles, the horrible air quality they have. But Congress never gave California the ability to regulate CO2 emissions for global warming. Global warming, if you consider it a problem, it's an international problem. It is not a problem that just impacts one state. So California is trying to do this, and if they're successful, there's already 5 or 6 other states that follow their lead. You're going to end up having the California car nationwide. So you're going to end up having the EV cars everywhere. So President Trump can and should revoke the ability of California to have the waiver for CO2 emissions. Again, this is different from air pollution. If they want to control air pollution, put on new devices for cars in Los Angeles because of the air quality there, that's a different matter. And nobody is talking about taking away that authority from California. But they should not be setting national authority for CO2 emissions from cars by requiring everything to be an EV. It just doesn't make sense.
So you're writing the Trump administration should revoke the California waiver on day one.
If you're a maintenance supervisor for a commercial property, you've had to deal with everything from leaky faucets to flickering light bulbs. But nothing's worse than that ancient boiler that's lived in the building since the day it was built, 50 years ago. It's enough to make anyone lose their cool. That's where Grainger comes in. With industrial-grade products and dependable fast delivery, Grainger can help with any challenge. From worn-out components to everyday necessities. Call, click Grainger.com, or just stop by. Grainger, for the ones who get it done.
Over the last 75 years, over 10,000 chemicals have been introduced to our food supply. Yet the EU only allows 300 food additives. But at Thrive Market, we bring our members the highest quality brands and restrict more than 1,000 ingredients found at conventional grocery stores, making the switches easy with our Healthy Swaps scanner, which finds better versions of all your favorite pantry, snacking, and home essentials without the added junk, dyes, and fillers. Plus, it's all delivered straight to your door. So if you're looking to shop at a grocery store that actually cares about your health, go to thrivemarket.com/podcast and you'll get 30% off your first order and a free gift.
Yes, they should start that process right away. California will sue. It'll go to the courts. But on day one, they should start the process of revoking the California waiver for CO2 emissions. Absolutely.
And one of the subheadings here, and you mentioned this in your journal piece, with respect to forcing electric vehicles on the rest of us. I mean, you're right about consumer choice, but they don't want consumer choice. We don't have the critical minerals to produce EV batteries, or at least in the kind of quantity that would be required. And related to that, Andrew Wheeler, is the issue. Well, China has the critical minerals to do it, but we don't. Aren't we playing into China's hands?
Absolutely. And the thing is, the radical environmentalists that are pushing this agenda would prefer people not to have their own car. They don't want us to have a gasoline-powered or an EV. They would rather everybody take mass transportation. So that's the radical environmentalists, and the politicians have just fallen prey to that. But you're right. We don't have the critical minerals. We don't have the energy to power two-thirds of our cars through electricity. I mean, California can barely keep the lights on right now. They don't have the energy to power all of their cars through electricity. And then we don't have the infrastructure for recharging across the country. It's, the Biden administration had, I think it was $8.5 billion, and they built approximately 20 charging units over the last 3 years.
Right.
It's going to take forever to get those charging stations built. We don't have the infrastructure for that. We don't have the electricity. We don't have the grid capacity to get the electricity where we need it. And we don't have the critical minerals to make the batteries that would result in two-thirds of our cars. We would be completely dependent upon China.
In part, we don't have the critical minerals because Biden regulations stopped drilling and excavation for critical minerals in the U.S. I mean, one of them is up in the Iron Range in Minnesota. I think you've got critical minerals in the Dakotas or in Montana. I mean, it's an odd, stupid story where they're saying, on the one hand, we want everybody to have EVs. We're going to pay you. We're going to loan you money. We're going to give you grants and cash and all the rest of it. But at the same time, we're not going to let domestic drilling and excavation for the critical minerals. I mean, I've never seen anything so. It's progressivism run stupid.
Absolutely. And the fact is, if we had a Democratic president for the next 12 years, they would have to go in and reopen this regulation because it just will not work under this time frame. But because President Trump will hopefully open, and he says that he will on the EV mandates, because he does that, they will call it a rollback. But it's not a rollback. It's bringing common sense.
That's right.
To the regulatory structure.
Andrew Wheeler, former administrator of the EPA, great friend. Thank you, Andrew. Happy holidays to you. Folks,
Happy holidays to you.
And then the brilliant Victor Davis Hanson, Why Trump is Different Today.